Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my October reading wrap up. October was definitely a weird month for me, both reading wise and just in my personal life. I talked about this briefly at the beginning of my November TBR video, but in case you missed it, I had some unexpected health issues come up last month that I was dealing with. I still managed to get a good bit of reading done, but I wasn't filming, I wasn't posting videos, which you may have noticed if you are subscribed. So I am so happy to be back in my regular routine, doing my favorite thing ever, which is sitting down, filming videos, and yapping about books with you guys. I am excited to talk about how my reading month was in October though, because like I said, it was a bit weird. I had the highest number of lowest rated books in October, but despite that, it wasn't a bad reading month overall. I still had some books that I absolutely loved. I had a new 5-star favorite that I can't wait to talk about with you guys. And then I had everything in between, some books that I just felt okay about. So kind of all across the board in terms of my ratings. I ended up reading 8 books in total last month, and for the genre breakdown, I read 3 romance, 1 thriller, 1 YA mystery, 1 horror, 1 historical fiction, and 1 literary fiction. So I have all different kinds of books to talk about with you guys that I had all different kinds of opinions on. So with that, let's jump right into it. The first book that I read in October is Business Casual by B.K. Borison. This is the 4th and final book in the Love Light Farm series. This book follows our female main character Nova and then our male main character Charlie, who are characters that we were introduced to in previous books of this series. Nova and Charlie are quite different from one another. I would say it is an opposites attract kind of love story. Nova is more spontaneous, a bit of a free spirit. She runs her own tattoo shop in this small town of Love Light Farms. Charlie is definitely a bit more professional. He has this corporate banking job, so he's a little bit more intense, but he and Nova definitely have some chemistry. They've been flirting back and forth, but because they're so different and for various other reasons, they feel like a relationship between them isn't going to work out. So Charlie and Nova decide that they're going to have a one-night stand to hopefully get each other out of their systems and just kind of move past one another, go their separate ways, and be cordial and friendly. But they think that all there really is between them is the physical attraction because they are so different. And so we follow what happens after they decide to have a one-night stand. And this series has been so weird for me because on paper, it is a very Caroline coded series. I am such a seasonal reader. Each of the 4 books in this series takes place in one of the 4 seasons. Love Light Farms was the first book in this series. It is the Christmassy, wintry book, and I absolutely love that book so much. I just felt like that book had absolutely everything going for it. It had strong characters, it had a strong romance, it had a great storyline in addition to the romance, and I thought the trope was done so well. I loved the found family. I thought this small town of Love Light Farms was set up so well. And from there, I felt like every other book in the series just hasn't been as strong by a lot. I feel like all the side characters haven't been really interesting enough to be main characters in their own books. I also feel like each of the books after Love Light Farms has not had much of a storyline at all and has just kind of relied on tropes to move the plot along, and they just haven't worked for me, unfortunately, Business Casual included. This is the fall book, so I did want to read it during the fall time, and I decided to give this one 2.5 stars. I just feel the same way about this book as I have books 2 and 3, unfortunately. I feel like Nova and Charlie worked better as side characters, and I was excited to see them in their own book, but they just didn't have enough going for them, I think, to be main characters. I also kind of feel like Love Light Farms just set up this world so well, and from there I feel like we learned all we need to know, so there hasn't really been any new information about the small town. It's been very repetitive, and it is kind of nice to have like the coziness and the familiarity of being back in a setting that I love, but that's really the only positives I feel the books after Love Light Farms have going for them. I also feel like this book especially, the dialogue was just super cheesy, and one thing I've also noticed about books 2, 3, and 4 is they are just extremely wordy and overly descriptive, which make the book very slow moving. I honestly feel like I could skip maybe 10 pages and not really miss anything because it's just very overly descriptive with so many details that feel unnecessary to me personally. So sadly, this series has been such a disappointment with how much I loved the first first book. I kind of wish it had been one and done. I feel like maybe it didn't need to be a whole series, but I do want to give BK Borison another chance. She has some other books that I'm interested in picking up. She started a new series at the beginning of this year, and she just released a winter book. So I definitely will read more from her. I'm hoping to love her other books as much as I love Love Light Farms. Sadly, Love Light Farms is the only book in the series that I would recommend, and I just didn't really have much luck with books 2, 3, or 4. The next book that I read is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is one of those books that I always see going around, but I just didn't think it would be for me, so I never really took the time to listen to what people had to say about it. I knew it was historical fiction, and I just didn't think it would be a book I would enjoy, so I never really picked it up until I saw someone recommending audiobooks for October on TikTok, and this girl really sold Wayward for me the way she described the audiobook, and I saw it was available right away through my library, so I decided to borrow it and give it a listen, and I'm so glad that I did. I definitely think audiobook is the way to go with this one because we get 3 different perspectives in this book following 3 different women in 3 very different time periods. In present day, we're following this woman named Kate, and she lives in London, and she is in a very bad living situation. So she ends up fleeing and going to stay in this cottage that previously belonged to her great aunt, and when she's there, she's learning things about her great aunt that she didn't really know before. The next perspective that we get is of a young girl named Violet in the 1960s, and she lives in this big estate with her father and with her brother, and her mother passed away when she was very young, so she doesn't remember anything about her, but there's lots of question marks surrounding the mother's life and especially her death. So she is trying to learn more about her mother, but it seems everyone that she asks for more information on her mother, they just don't really want to tell her anything. The third and final perspective we get in this book is a young girl named Alpha in the 1600s, and she is on trial for murder, and somehow all 3 of these women are connected. It definitely gives very witchy vibes. I would look up trigger warnings because there are some heavier things as well, but audiobook is the way to go with this one because each 3 of the women get a different narrator, and it truly brought this story to life. I don't know how the narrators did it, but the way they spoke and the accents and the different dialects truly transported me to these different time periods, and I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it so much. I feel like there's not really much I could say to convince someone to read this because if someone described it to me, I feel like I would find it boring because that's kind of the impression that I had in the past and why I didn't want to pick this one up, but it was far from it. Every single word in this book had me so hooked and so gripped. I loved the witchy vibes. It was truly the perfect book to read during the month of October. It was just very captivating, very women empowering. It's gonna break your heart at times, but I also found it to be very uplifting at moments as well. I just love this story so much. I love the characters. I loved seeing how they all tied together, and this connection that they had was so special. I didn't absolutely love the epilogue. There was one thing that happened that felt kind of weird and I kind of wish would have been done in a different way, but I guess it made sense and kind of tied things together, but that was really the only critique I had of the book. Everything else about it I loved, and I think it is the perfect read for spooky season. Okay, and then I read The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. I just felt like this was going to be a fun kind of paranormal afterlife romance. It was giving Dead Romantics vibes, which I read at the beginning of October, the year that book came out, and it was the perfect way to set up my month. So that's kind of what I did with this book as well, and I'm so glad I did. I feel like I read this book at the perfect time also. We're following our main character Delphi, and at the beginning of the book she has a freak accident, ends up dying, and we follow her in the afterlife waiting room, and when she's there she ends up meeting this man, and she has this instant love at first sight kind of connection with him, but then the man fades away and we find out that he ends up going back to Earth, and she is like, what? No, I need to be with him. He is my soulmate. I could feel it. We had something. So the person kind of assisting her in the afterlife waiting room is like, okay, I'm gonna make a deal with you. I'm gonna send you back to Earth. You have 10 days to meet up with this man, find him on Earth, reconnect with him. If you do that, you can stay on Earth permanently. If not, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to bring you back to the afterlife and you're gonna remain dead. So we're following Delphi on this journey of her 10 days on Earth trying to find this man who she thinks is her soulmate, and I loved this so much. I gave it 4.5 stars. The premise of this book is so fun, so I had a good feeling I was gonna love it. The way it is set up is done so well. Delphi was such a fun character to follow. She's so funny. I loved her journey. I loved all the people that she met along the way, and it really is a book filled with so many good life lessons. I loved the things that Delphi kind of learned. I thought it was such an important story as well in a lot of ways. It definitely felt a bit predictable. Like if you read romance, I feel like you can pick this one up, read it, and kind of know where it's gonna go, but definitely took me by surprise in a few places as well, which I really enjoyed. One thing that I will say I didn't absolutely love about the book is that one of our characters in here is obsessed with romance novels. So romance novels and like popular romance authors are constantly being name dropped throughout the book, and that kind of took me out of it, because when I'm reading a romance book, sometimes I don't want it to be overly self-aware. Like I don't want to be reminded that I'm reading a romance book. I want it to feel like immersive, and that did kind of take me out of the story. But by the end, it did kind of make sense for this character because they loved romance books so much. So by the end, I was like, oh, okay, I see why that was kind of done. But throughout, it did kind of bother me, all the name dropping. But other than that, I had so much fun with this one. It was such a good time. It's actually set during the summer, but to me, I think it was perfect to read in the month of October. So I'm really glad that I did. But if the story sounds good to you and you're in the mood for this kind of a book, I think you could pick it up anytime, and I definitely think you would enjoy it. Okay, and then the next book that I read is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This is one of those books that I feel has been on my TBR for forever. I feel like so many people have read it. I've read quite a few books by Ruth Ware and mostly enjoyed them all, so I was excited for this one, and I knew the movie was about to come out starring Keira Knightley, so I was also excited for that, and I definitely wanted to read the book first. And in this one, we follow our main character, Lo, who gets this amazing job opportunity to be on this luxury cruise ship for a little bit of time and do like a write-up of the ship. And while she's there, once she gets settled, a couple days into the voyage, she witnesses what she thinks is a woman being thrown overboard. And when she alerts the other people on the ship and lets them know what she saw, everyone else is like, well, all the passengers are accounted for. Everyone who's supposed to be here is here. So either you didn't see what you think you did, or something sketchy is going on. And you guys, unfortunately, I gave out my first 1-star rating of the year to this book. I did not enjoy anything about it. First off, it was very slow. It was a lot of setting up the story at the beginning. We learned so much about Lo, and it really took the time to delve into her background. And I didn't mind that so much, other than the fact that I was kind of bored and it was slow going. I was like, okay, we're really getting to understand and know Lo. This is going to be relevant to what's going to happen. And in some ways it was, but I was ready to move on. I was ready to see what her journey on the ship was going to be like. That was what I was most excited for, and like the mystery and the thrilling aspects of the book. So we spend so much time setting up Lo and her character before she gets on this ship and gets this job offer. And then once she gets on the ship, it's like the climax of the book is brushed over so quickly. It happens in like 0.5 seconds, and there's so many characters in this book. I thought we were gonna get to know them a little better, but I couldn't keep track of anyone. I couldn't remember anyone's names. I didn't know who was who. The characterization was just not it at all. So I feel like when there would be shocking things that would happen and it's like, oh, it's this person, it's this person, I was just lost. I was like, okay, well, I don't know who that is because it wasn't explained very well. Also, all the characters were unlikable. They were all pretentious, which I don't mind, but I couldn't keep track of anyone. I'm like, this is just a big bunch of unlikable people. And it really frustrated me because we spent so much time setting up the story at the beginning, and then it felt like the things that I really needed and wanted to know were brushed over so quickly and we didn't spend enough time on. But I kept reading because I was interested enough to know what was gonna happen in the end, and I was ready for this big, shocking, crazy reveal, or at least I hoped that was what was gonna happen. I felt like I spent the majority of this book waiting for things to happen, and then when things did happen, it happened so fast that it was like, oh, okay, like I don't even know what just happened. And I feel there were just way too many characters to keep track of that it just took away the suspense for me, because I didn't understand the significance of anyone. I didn't understand the importance or like the role different people played in the story. And so the whole time I'm thinking, okay, I don't absolutely hate this. It's probably going to be a 2-star. I'm interested enough to keep reading and at least finish. I want to know how this is going to end. And then the ending came and we kind of get explained what was going on, and I was like, okay. And then I was still kind of holding out for more of an ending, because we learned something at the beginning when Lo's backstory is being set up that I thought was just gonna like tie into everything and have this huge significance, but it completely goes unanswered. And I'm like, there's no way, there's absolutely no way that the book is like done, because we didn't get this piece of the puzzle that felt very significant to me answered. And so that kind of solidified this had to be a 1-star for me, because I was just so angry that this huge thing that felt very important in the beginning, and I was kind of waiting to see how that was going to play out and how everything was going to tie in, just didn't tie in. So I'm like, what was even the point? I mean, it kind of explained a little bit why Lo's character was the way she was, but yeah, not a fan of this book at all. Boring, not suspenseful, too many characters, and questions went unanswered. So unfortunately was not a fan, and I felt the exact same way about the movie. I will say being able to kind of visualize things helped me keep track of what was going on and who was who, but still overall wasn't a big fan of the story. Then I read Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. This is a short novella that came out with a collection of other like spooky Halloween themed romances, and this one is a vampire romance following our female main character, who is a vampire named Ethel, and our male main character Laszlo is a vampire slayer, and they have kind of been feuding for centuries. They've had many encounters where it's like a close call and Ethel thinks it is the end for her, but every time she manages to get away. And now we're following in present day another close call between the two of them, except Ethel realizes that Laszlo has completely lost all of his memories and has no idea who she is, so we follow their dynamic from there. And I gave this one 3 stars. There were things I liked about it. It was funny, it was cute, I liked the vibes, but overall really forgettable. It was super short. It wasn't one where I was like wishing it was a full-length novel like I have with a lot of Ali Hazelwood's novellas. I don't necessarily think I would recommend this one to you guys unless you're really looking for a vampire romance. It's a good one for spooky season if that's what you're looking for. Otherwise, it was extremely forgettable. Like the details now are kind of escaping me, but it was fun and enjoyable in the moment. Then I read Finding Grace by Loretta Rothschild. This is a literary fiction book that has a little bit of mystery and a little bit of romance, and I feel like I haven't seen a lot about this book at all, but the few people I heard recommend it really made it sound intriguing. I think it was also a book of the month pick a few months back. But in this one we follow our female main character Honor. She is a mother and wife to our male main character Tom, and they have one young daughter together, and Honor especially is really wanting another child, but she is having trouble conceiving. They have gone through so many different options, tried so many different things to have another child. So now the last option that they are trying is using a surrogate mother, and so they are on this family vacation. I believe it's around the holidays. They're staying at the Ritz in Paris, and they're trying to have a nice family vacation, but all Honor can think about is getting in touch with this surrogate mother because she's about to find out if the pregnancy was successful. So she is like glued to her phone waiting to find out, get an update, get news, and Tom is kind of over it. He's like, listen, you have been obsessing over this, like I understand, but we need to spend time and pay attention to the daughter that we do have. Let's have a nice happy vacation together during the holidays as a family. We follow things from there, and unfortunately on this vacation something very tragic happens, and that's all I'm going to tell you because we follow the aftermath from there, and this book went so many different ways that I was not expecting, but I gave it 3.75 stars. It's definitely a very interesting premise, and I feel like once the story is set up, you kind of know where things are going. You're just kind of waiting the whole time for the other shoe to drop and to see what's gonna happen when it finally does. It was suspenseful, but I wouldn't say I was necessarily on the edge of my seat. The romance in this book I couldn't fully get behind. It's a little bit hard to root for, which that was a big part of the book and a big part of where the storyline goes. So it was hard for me to fully get into it, and I feel like something was always kind of missing for me in that sense. But overall, overall I did enjoy it. It was a very unique story and I found the writing style to be very interesting and original. So I probably would recommend this one overall if it sounds intriguing to you. It's not like my new favorite thing ever, but it was enjoyable and very fascinating while I was reading. Okay, and then I did a reread of Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I want to finish this series, but I definitely needed a refresher on book 1, so I'm really glad that I did a reread. In this book, we follow our main character, Stevie, and she is going to attend this school called Ellingham Academy. And it's a very unique school in that it's not like a traditional curriculum teaching traditional classes to people. All the students at Ellingham Academy kind of have a very unique skill set or talent or a special interest that they're wanting to go there and study. And for our main character, Stevie, that is true crime. And Stevie really goes in wanting to solve this cold case, actually of the history of the school. Albert Ellingham, the founder of the school, his wife and daughter were kidnapped, and the only thing that was left as a clue was this riddle signed by someone named Truly Devious. And Truly Devious's identity was never uncovered, so that's what Stevie is there trying to do. But while she's there, another crazy thing happens and there's another mystery for her to try to solve. And I really enjoy this. This was a 4-star read for me. It was a solid YA mystery. I feel like this series for me is what the Good Girls Guide to Murder series is for a lot of people. I just didn't really connect with that series, but I really like this story a lot. I find it very interesting. I enjoy the characters. It is a really fun time and perfect for the fall season because it's set at this boarding school in Vermont. It has all the vibes that I want in this kind of a mystery novel, so I'm excited to continue on with the series. It's definitely one that leaves you with so many questions, but in the best way, because there's so many things that I can't wait to uncover. Okay guys, and then the final book that I read in the month of October, I listened to on audio, and that is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This book is set in the 1970s in Florida. We follow our main character, Fern, who is a young teenager who ends up getting pregnant, and she is sent away by her family to live in this home where all these girls have been sent to kind of have their babies in private, because at this time especially it was very frowned upon for young unmarried women to be pregnant. So they send them away here to kind of let them be pregnant and have their babies in private and keep it a secret. So we're following Fern when she's at this home with all these other young mothers and the friendships that she makes and the things that she learns. And along the way, she ends up meeting this librarian who gives her this book, and some kind of witchy things start happening from there. And you guys, this book so unexpectedly ended up being 5 stars. I have not had the best luck at all with Grady Hendrix in the past. The first book of his that I read was My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I did not like that book at all. I found it to be very problematic, so I just didn't think Grady Hendrix would be an author for me. But I gave him another try last year when I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and I enjoyed that one more, but it was still kind of just in the middle for me. And I don't know, something about this book was just speaking to me. I wanted another witchy kind of book with themes of girlhood and sisterhood, and I felt like this was going to give me that, and it was the epitome of that. I absolutely loved reading this book in the month of October. I truly felt transported to this period in time in the 70s with these characters, for better or worse. The things they did, the things they said, the beliefs a lot of them had. Aside from some of like the horror fantastical elements that happened, it felt so realistic. I felt so in it with these girls. I truly felt for them so much. It broke my heart, but it also was uplifting at moments as well. I think with this book, I've kind of noticed like the formula Grady Hendrix has. I usually enjoy his stories, and then I found when the horror elements kick in, that's kind of where it loses me. But with this book, the horror elements were kind of like the witchiness, so I think that's why it worked for me so well. But I will say I enjoyed the book more when we weren't focusing on the horror elements. I just loved seeing these girls at this home and like the strength they gave each other, the way they bonded and uplifted one another. It truly was one of my favorite things to read about. I just love themes of sisterhood and girlhood in books, although it was a very hard read at times because of what a lot of these girls have been through. I would definitely check trigger warnings, but it felt very raw and realistic. And again, I love to see the way that they cared for each other and were there for one another. And I just have learned that I love witchy vibes in books, so now I'm here for all the witchy reads. I definitely want to prioritize that that next October because I just absolutely loved it. It worked so well for me, and I was not expecting to love something so much from an author that I haven't had the best of luck with in the past. So really glad that I gave Grady Hendrix and this book a try because it's now one of my favorite reads of the year. So those are all the books that I read in the month of October, kind of all over the place, but we had some new favorites. So I would say overall it definitely was a success. Let me know what you guys read in the month of October, how your reading month went, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you read any of the books that I read last month, let me know all your thoughts down below on them. If you enjoyed watching, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on any future videos from me. And I will see you guys very soon in my next one. Bye guys.